Hello citizens and welcome back. CAG just announced their multi-tiered plan to implement item recovery for Star Citizen, with Tier 0 coming in patch 4.1, which is already in the PTU. Item recovery was one of the most requested features, but the request was specifically tied to pledge items and subscriber gear. However, the proposed system and the Tier 0 changes reach much further. Some members of the community have expressed concerns, while others are celebrating the change. In this video, I would like to take a look at this proposed system, its tiers and flaws, and what could be done better. As always, if you like this video, sacrifice a like and a comment to the YouTube algorithm and subscribe for more. And here's a shout out to our amazing patrons and channel members for their support of the channel and everything else I do. So let's dive right into item recovery. CAG are aiming for a 3-tier system, with Tier 0 coming in 4.1 and Tiers 1 and 2 coming later in the development. Tier 0 introduces significant changes to looting and how equipment is retained on death. It introduces a difference between items that are equipped and items that are in your inventory. Equipped items are those items that are attached to an item port on your character. This mostly applies to armor and weapons. It also applies to consumables like weapon magazines and medpens, but there are some special rules for those which I will cover here in a moment. Equipped items are not lost on death and you will respawn with them. At the same time, armor and equipped weapons cannot be looted from your corpse. Magazines and consumables can be looted from your corpse, but you also respawn with them as well. At the same time, if you die with a weapon in your hands, if that weapon was equipped, you will respawn with it and it won't be lootable. Then we have items in your inventory. These are any items that are stored inside your armor's inventory or backpack. Items in your inventory will be lost on death and will be lootable from your corpse. There is only one exception to this, and that is if you die within a landing zone, in which case you will respawn with all of your items. Now, Tier 0 is a major change, and it actually brings us back to almost how things were before inventories and looting were introduced. For some, this is a welcome change. It protects players from losing the most expensive parts of their gear to a random death. I think we will see more armor variety in the verse following this change, since people won't be afraid of losing the cool armor sets they got from events or loot or subscribers. At the same time, I think it's a good technical change, because people will buy fewer sets of armor. I know many players who after every wipe buy 20 sets of their favorite armor. If everyone does this, that's a lot of database entries to keep track of. And if we don't lose armor on death anymore, we only have to keep 1 or 2 sets per location. Also, I see it as a great quality of life improvement, since we no longer have to re-equip right after respawn, and we can finally be rid of piles of medical gowns. On the other hand, a lot of people are unhappy about this. The biggest complaint is that you can't loot gear from players anymore, which is fair. I suppose a lot of people like looting, but you can still loot NPCs and those generally have the cooler stuff depending on where you go. Now, I would agree that the game telling you that you can't loot someone's armor or weapon because it's bound to their account is very immersion breaking. But at the same time, I don't find full loot gameplay to be very immersive either. And I am saying this with all the love for my loot goblin friends, but who strips their dead enemy of their damaged and dirty armor? Like, why would you want to do that? Unless you want to sell it for scrap, I guess. On the other hand, looting weapons makes more sense. It's still a weapon and it still works, and unlike the armor, it doesn't have a bunch of bullet holes in it. The other and more important concern with item recovery Tier 0 is that item loss and having to re-equip items created a cost to dying and delay to getting back into a fight. Currently, if you bring a medical bed, you still have to bring spare gear, and it takes you a while to put it back on and go back to the fight. Now, with Tier 0, there is little cost because you're not losing the equipped gear, and it's pretty quick because you respawn with it already equipped. This will make fighting any opponent with a medical bed extremely annoying. Now, in general, I think the concerns and questions are valid, but we have to remember that this is a Tier 0 implementation, and I see it as a stopgap solution to item recovery until proper systems can be built. And I think the major dependencies for Tiers 1 and 2 are insurance and crafting. So let's have a look at what will change with Tiers 1 and 2. But first, let me take a brief pause to pay some bills. Thanks to CAG, I am running another screenshot contest. The rules are the same as before, so you can submit up to 3 Star Citizen screenshots that will fit the theme, Need for Speed. And you have to be a subscriber or a follower at the time of the winner selection. The winner will get a Mustang Gamma with LTI, along with the Murray Cup paint, Murray Cup suit, and racing helmet and rifle. The full rules and the submissions are linked in the description and pinned comment. Also, don't forget to check out the latest episode of the Comm Relay podcast and my community apps, the Hauler and the Armory. Now let's get back to the video. So, Tier 1 introduces a few more steps to the system. First, you will have to register your currently equipped gear at a dedicated terminal. This is probably going to cost you a fee, likely tied to the value of the gear. This is essentially insurance. This registration process will apply to ships as well. Now, if you die, you won't respawn with all your gear, but you will be able to visit a freight elevator or an inventory kiosk to reclaim your gear. CAG will also be introducing a function to quickly equip the whole set. At the same time, all items on your body will be lootable, so your armor, weapons, consumables, and anything in your inventory. However, as soon as you reclaim the registered items, all of those items will become unusable by whoever looted them after a period of time. These bricked items can only be sold. Now, this idea has a couple of gaps. First of all, how does an item become unusable? How can you make a t-shirt no longer be possible to put on? And how would the signal to disable itself reach the item? Now, the problem is that these are in-game questions, and the item recovery system is designed to reduce item duplication, which is a metagame problem, so it has a metagame solution. Now, I will be very interested to see how the lore team explain it in the game, but technically they don't have to. And finally, Tier 2 expands on Tier 1 with the inclusion of crafting. Tier 2 retains the bricked status of claimed items, but they can now be melted down into crafting materials, and it also adds a way to restore a bricked item into working order for the cost of some materials and possibly having a relevant blueprint. And that essentially closes the cycle on crafting, looting, and item recovery. Now, this system has a few flaws and a few things that could be done better. And there are some concerns about crafting and the Tier 2 implementation. First of all, the bricked items implementation is a bit strange. I understand the need to prevent item duplication, but the Tier 2 implementation essentially reverses that effort. A better way would be for registered items to be marked as stolen. Stolen items can be used by whoever looted them. They can only be sold at certain locations or melted for materials. If you're caught by the authorities while carrying stolen items, those will be taken from you and you will be fined and lose reputation. Stolen items can be hidden from scanning in shielded compartments on ships, giving those areas a meaning. Also, this could introduce the need to take stolen items to a different jurisdiction in order to launder them or sell them, as well as risk for anyone carrying them. And they can keep the ability to restore stolen items, making them essentially legitimate and yours. I think this would be a much better system and what we will eventually get to. A lot of backers also expressed concerns about this destroying crafting and player-driven economy, with items being very easy to recover. I don't think this will be the case. Crafting is still going to be relevant. You will need to craft high-tier items and upgrade existing ones. You will also need to legitimize stolen items, which I think should require a lot of research to be able to do. For example, to be able to legitimize an item, you need to have at least 3 tiers of it researched, and you need to have dismantled a few of those items. I think this change actually expands the possibility of crafting. Also, not everyone is going to register all of their items, so there's still going to be some item loss. I also think CIG will introduce some scenarios in which even registered items won't be reclaimable. The post specifically mentions backspacing from a dangerous situation, so we will have to see what this looks like. In conclusion, item recovery is an important feature for Star Citizen moving forward. It addresses issues of pledge item recovery and to an extent item duplication. However, the Tier 0 implementation has major flaws, and it should only definitely serve as a placeholder. But given the history of Tier 1 implementations in Star Citizen, it might be around for a while. And with that being said, that's all for today. What do you think? Is item recovery Tier 0 a good step? How should stolen items be handled in the future? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, fly safe, and I will see you in the verse.